Welcome to DTFA Podcast. I'm Kate.
I'm Elle.
And this is the debut episode of our Spicy Girls Book Club.
Woo-hoo.
And I feel so much better. You look better.
Thanks. Now I sound congested, so I apologize
But
in
you're
advance.
very Pride.
I am. I went to Pride, so part of it is like dehydration and allergies.
Dehydration will really help you lose those extra pounds.
It was like 100 degrees.
Ugh.
So Pride Nashville was so much fun, but literally like I melted. Also, if you're a small business or like do your own art, I will waste my money on you. I bought
she
so
will
much
buy
stuff.
like headbands and earrings.
I have the cutest sunglasses. I
Very
have
cute.
handmade earrings. I totally bought a parasol that said shade because like adorable. I could have used a fan, but I bought the parasol instead.
Did you also buy a bear?
Yeah.
In my bear era.
Isn't that adorable?
We're in our bear era.
Love it. Well, there's Nashville has a club rugby team that's inclusive and part of like International Gay Rugby Association. So they're called the Grizzlies.
We
And
support the Grizzlies.
like being in my bear era is the perfect play on words. And it's super comfy.
Well,
Love
it's
it.
perfect. This is like, I'm very excited about this week. I'm excited about this episode. I'm excited about the House of the Dragon episode that we just did. We have like a lot of shit going on.
Yes.
It's a reason to live.
I know. Well, like if we're gonna
I
get
needed
spicy, I gotta get prepared to get hot, you know?
Well, and
Gotta be
I'm
comfy.
feeling better. I was feeling off for weeks. And right around the time I started feeling better, you started feeling worse.
I know.
Maybe I'm a succubus, an incubus. I
You
can
took
only
all
feel
of my-
good.
You took my youth and my health. Thank you.
Thanks.
I don't know. Also, Middle Tennessee, there's always something blooming. So I just sorry for sounding gross, but I'm gonna push through it. So we wrapped up our Crescent City episode last week. And before we start our Throne of Glass deep dive, we're talking
So
Bride.
excited about that.
I know. It's going to be intense. And like, I've loved these books and read them so many times. I can't wait.
I'm almost done with First Throne of Glass in my reread. And there are
Nice.
so many things that, first of all, I love that book. And it can be, you could say it's a little more YA, but it is so fucking good.
I think I'll actually probably reread it with us because I've been through it so many times. I'm afraid if I just start reading, I'll rush through. So with the deep dive, I want to be here for all the like detailed content. So today we're talking Bride by Ali Hazelwood. And then next week we're going to do a Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. And then we'll jump on Throne of Glass.
I loved
so
Bride.
great.
They're so different. I loved Bride for different reasons than Fate Inked in Blood. Bride is it's not lore heavy. It's just kind of like a fun short read. And a Fate Inked in Blood is there's like so much mythology and lore.
I wish Bride was a series because I love to be able to read more than one book about something.
Well,
but
I think that they kind of might have set up for. I don't know if anything's been announced.
There's
I know
potential for the future, but they did a good job of kind of like covering everything if there's not.
Right. And Allie's kind of gone back to her romance roots, and we love that for her. We're just not as much romance girlies, but hopefully she revisits Supernatural at some point.
Yes, please.
And we also have our House of the Dragon mini-sodes that we're doing, and unless something went terribly wrong, that should already be available.
Yay.
And we're talking about season 2 as the episodes come out, and I don't have like a lot of flexes, but I actually did read Fire and Blood.
Yeah, that's wild.
And it is a fictional historical textbook, basically. So we're going to be talking about the differences from the book to the show, and then why you can't actually trust the book because it is all gossip and rumor and written by someone way later during Robert Baratheon's reign. So like all those people were long dead. So it gives the show a lot more room because you don't know if what you're reading is the truth or if it was just like anti-Targaryen propaganda. So I'm really excited to talk through that. We're not going to share spoilers about like what eventually will happen.
Yeah.
Just some characters that we meet that we're like, you know what? Pay attention to Hugh.
It's nice that you read the book though, because whether it sticks true to the book or like how much it varies, you can give us a little bit more backstory. So you're like, okay, I'm anticipating this. I get a little more information about the history of something. It's going to be really fun to break it down.
Well, and like Blood and Cheese, I thought that we had like I know I hate that.
Every time that title, I'm like, whoa. Okay.
It's me on my period, Blood and Cheese.
Stop.
But there were some pretty big changes that I think
Yeah. And we'll break it down in our mini-sode.
I won't go too far into that because people who are listening to this and don't watch are like, shut up. I don't fucking care. But I did love Bride. I didn't know what to expect going into it. It was my first Ali Hazelwood book because she is a romance writer and we're just fantasy romance girlies.
Yeah. I mean, I love reading a good romance book, but once I got into the fantasy arena, I can't really go back.
Yeah, it's hard to go back to normal guys when you're reading just a regular romance book and it's like, wait, this guy's just a guy?
So there's no
magic?
have
fangs. No, he doesn't have magic. No one's different than other girls. It's just like regular. If I wanted to be depressed, I would, in like the real world, I would just look in the mirror. I would just, like
I need a little magic,
know plenty
please.
of regular romance stories, but yeah, I was so excited that she decided to, write something in the fantasy romance or, whatever you want to call it.
She really jumped in.
Shifter romance, paranormal romance, whatever. But it's, when you read the regular romance, you can't fall in love with like a fae prince. Most of the people probably only have one dick.
Yeah,
that's not exciting for me.
Wow.
But this, we have wolf shifters and they cannot, and that's something we're definitely going to be talking about because I really misunderstood what knotting was in my first read.
Oh yeah, no, I've read that in other books. That is hot and dirty.
But yeah,
and it's genuinely funny.
It's genuinely funny. I was so interested when I heard that she was putting something out with vampires and werewolves or Vampyre and Weres, whatever. It was genuinely funny. Like I actually LOL'd at times, and not me. Like usually when I type LOL, like I'm just sitting there, blank face, nice. Blank stare. But the dialogue was relatable. It was very much how we talk.
Yeah, I love our FMC.
But it wasn't sometimes, and I won't name names. Some authors will throw in too much of like the trendy words and phrases, and all of a sudden your FMC is dabbing and you're like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it was just like trying too hard to be sassy and fun. But like in Bride, I think she was, even if she was just having like a dry sense of humor, I was like, yes, queen, I hear you.
Yes, I was laughing.
It flowed really well. It felt natural. It felt like how we talk like in our friend group.
Right, exactly.
And it has all of our favorite tropes. We've got arranged marriage of convenience, there's a slow burn, there's touch her and die.
And there's a lot of the micro tropes that we love. Like when you are with someone and you sleep better when you're beside them. Yeah. I love that. When like the big tough guy becomes a caretaker when someone is sick. The MMC having to help the FMC bathe, like little micro tropes.
Of her,
yeah. I love those. There's a lot of them. I'm gonna make a list one day of like the little micro tropes of things that, like obviously there's enemies to lovers, there's one bed, but there are little things that pop up in a lot of these books.
It makes the characters more endearing when you get to read them.
But before we get too deep into Bride, you have our book recommendation this week.
I do. So my book rec this week is a reverse harem series.
What?
I know. I'm working on finding more for you guys. The author is Mae Dawson, and the series is called Dragon Royals.
Is this the one I read?
Yes. And you guys may recognize it because when we gave our top 5 reverse harem recommendations, this is one of them. And I don't think I've actually told you guys about it yet. So it's actually set in a really interesting world that brings up a lot of questions. So the world of the Dragon Royals series is it's interesting because this kingdom where it's set has been isolated from other kingdoms for at least 200 years because of the scourge. I know it's pronounced or it's spelled Scourge. So I'm hoping it's not scourge, scourge.
Scourge sounds right.
They're like basically zombies. They're not really described enough, and
I barely remember.
When reading through it, you're like, how you have questions about where they came from, which is an underlying theme in the book.
The world building is
secondary. And so we start out learning that basically everybody's fae, but this kingdom used to be more like elemental magic, and there weren't very many shifters. Shifters were kind of looked down upon. But then
I just started my period.
Great.
We'll just keep going.
But then, like, as the scourge grew, the magic changed and like adapted to have more shifters. So they did have dragon shifters, but they were feared and like least accepted in the beginning. And then once it became apparent that they were the best at fighting the scourge, they actually became the rulers. Interesting how that all came at the same time.
I didn't get to that part. Is it interesting?
Yeah. Well,
I was just like flipping through. I was like,
nobody can explain where the scourge came from, and then all of a sudden, the ones that are best able to protect against it are also the ones in charge.
You know, that reminds me.
So you're like, that feels a little wink, wink. How'd you get there?
That reminds me of from Blood and Ash.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you're like, okay, why are we not asking more questions?
Because we're fucking the Fae princes.
Hold on, we got to get there. So there's like a brotherhood of dragon shifters. It's all men, and then like the top 5 of them are the rulers, which is weird because there's one king and the rest are like dukes, but all of their sons are called prince.
It's very Zodiac Academy, like their little council.
I mean, honestly, there's a lot of like parallels with Zodiac Academy. Also, these men have been in charge for over 200 years, so they've done something to extend their life expectancy. And they also manipulated magic so that all 5 of them would have sons at the same time in order to try to like continue their reign.
That's like the women that I went to high school with. They all had kids at the same time.
Well, so I hear what you're saying, but for these guys,
no magic was involved.
Right. For these guys, it's very difficult for them to reproduce for some reason. So like they did something to intentionally make sure they all had sons because there's no female dragons, which is weird.
There's not?
No, all of their wives, what? All of their wives are not dragons. And if they have daughters, they're like bears, wolves, swans.
They're bears.
I know. There's some
bear era.
I'm here for it, guys. There's some other type of shifter, basically. So our story begins at the military academy where there's 5 dragon princes that are the sons of the dragon rulers.
We love a school setting.
I know. We love the academy setting. That's another trope. And they're all in training, in a military training also is such a trope. Our FMC, her name is Honor. And I know.
I mean, I laugh, but then we're also about to talk about a book. Her name is Misery. So
yeah,
who are we to judge?
That's interesting. So Honor is a maid at the academy. And she has an interesting backstory. She's adopted by a nobleman as a child. And he spread the word that she was his bastard child, but actually she's not. So we don't know where she came from. And she goes to a finishing school. However, once her adopted father passes away, her evil stepmother yanks her out of the school and makes her work to earn her keep in the household. Her stepmother is like, yeah, okay, you're not special. Stop.
Which is very Cinderella.
Yeah, it's really, really. And so the nobleman and his first wife also had their own child a few years after adopting Honor. So she puts up with her stepmother's bullshit. She sticks around because she's trying to protect her younger sister and get her out of there. So the beginning of this book, Honor is cleaning the rooms of the dragon princes, naturally getting in their personal business.
She really is just the maid.
I mean, she's a very sassy maid that doesn't seem to know her place.
Well, all the other maids are like every time she sasses back.
All the maids are like, you shouldn't be in there. They're going to come back from training soon. And she's just bebopping around, eating cake and doing what she wants instead of cleaning. So naturally she bumps into like the main prince and pisses him off. And then to like finish whatever with her attitude, she jumps out a window.
Yeah.
Like she's just jumping from balcony to balcony, which like stops him in his tracks.
She has a lot more training than you'd think.
Yeah. So her finishing school was also, they trained the women to be assassins. Like, why didn't we go to school there? Like, okay. It seems like an everyday matter.
I was doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right? So Honor knows that she's a shifter, but she doesn't know what type of shifter yet because most don't shift until they're like 19 or 20.
But she thinks she's going to be like a chipmunk.
Right. So, and like most people also follow their biological lines, like whatever their parents are, but she doesn't know her real parents. So she's made jokes because one of the other maids, I think I forgot, she's another rodent or something in the rodent family. So she's made jokes that she'll probably also be something really small. And again, there's no female dragons.
Yeah, but she's not like other girls.
So it doesn't even occur to her that could be a thing. So she's bumped into the main prince. She's kind of gotten the prince's attention by just like being around them and flouting authority, but also giving them sass and not deferring to them.
No one's ever really talked back to him. So he's like, what? But they
excuse
like
me?
And it happens really quickly. Like it gets to the sex pretty.
They jump into the story. Like it just like happens like all at once. So she's grabbing their attention very quickly in the story. She goes to like her shifting ceremony. And then of course she shifts into a dragon, shocking everybody. There were not a lot of witnesses to see it. and the ruling dragons immediately show up and they're like, we have to shut this down. Nobody can know that you're a female shifter, like dragon shifter, which is weird and stupid, but apparently there's a prophecy that they're trying to like keep hidden. So she still has to go through training because she is a dragon, and they put her under like an enchantment so that she looks like a guy and can go through training as a male dragon shifter.
So these guys that she's hooking up with are on a regular basis beating the shit out of her without knowing that it's her.
They change her into a male nobleman that all the guys hate. So they're like, oh, here's our chance to beat him up. And it's like,
so they're all sweet to her, and then they have to beat the shit out of her.
So it's really interesting. You see both sides of the guys. But so like there's a lot of big drama, a lot of big questions about the magic. There's sexual escapades and mystery. Why choose? I was reading it while we were in Italy. It's just a fun summer read.
I was reading it on the plane in Italy, and
she was trying to read over my shoulder a couple books.
I know, and I was like, I don't want to read this. I need to do my Throne of Glass reread. I brought a physical Throne of Glass, didn't open it once, ended up reading this reverse harem.
Every time we were on a train, she's like over my shoulder. And I was like, hello, can I help you?
Well, I was like, can you read faster or skip ahead?
But then you're also asking questions. I'm having to give her the backstory of everybody. And I was like, what if you read it? You know?
So then I did. But I don't think I got past the second book because she had only hooked up with two of the guys. And
well, they also bring in another guy that's not a dragon shifter. I was like, we are really why choose. There's so many options here.
The wolf?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
so he is in the harem.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay. It is a lot of fun. It's like, I think it's kind of a light and easy read.
Right.
So if I find another really raunchy reverse harem that's good, I'll recommend it to you guys. But lately, some of the ones that I come across, they're really slow to the sex. There's no group sex.
The
writing's not great.
Harem.
And I'm like, or they're like in school and 17 going on 18. I'm like, it's too young. It's too young.
Yeah.
So if I find more that I really like, I'll let you guys know.
Well, that's how I feel with Throne of Glass when a lot of people are like, there's not, it's not spicy enough. And I'm like, remember her age when not only Sarah's age when she was writing it, but the main character's age.
Once she hits 18, we open the doors.
But I love your reverse harem recommendations. Keep them coming.
I will do my best, guys. I'm taking
You're doing the Lord's work.
I am reading through all of these for you guys.
Let's start talking about Bride.
Yay.
And I guess we should start with the world building. And I thought it was pretty easy to understand overall. There's not a ton of lore. There's not a ton of setup. But, not every book needs to be this really complex multiverse.
Yeah. I like that it was like, okay, you already know about this. Let's move on.
Right. It was short. It was just like a fun read. It makes sense for Ali to not be a huge world building author because her books are all set in their contemporaries. They're in our world. So she's always written in our world, like she's not one of these fantasy romance writers that has to create their own world.
Yeah. And she gives us some backstory about like what's going on with the different groups, but it's not like, it's pertinent to what's happening right now, but it also is like, she doesn't have to dwell on all of that because the rest of it's already kind of come together. Mm-hmm. Although I will say I was a little disappointed that vampires weren't stronger.
I know.
I think I watched too much True Blood. It was
kind of lame.
Because like they were talking about how like the wolves were like so much stronger. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so why are not the shifters seem like the people that should be in power?
Right.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
But it does help that we're already familiar with like the vampire and werewolf lore.
Right. Like we have the classic sun is toxic and deadly to the vampire with enough exposure. They don't like immediately burst into flames. Mm-hmm. But unlike some books, like you were saying, they aren't immortal. They grow old the same as any species. What sets a vampire apart, it's not biting or turning. It's not, it's not that like occult or spooky vibe. Mm-hmm. It's just a genetic mutation.
Yeah. So it's not like
it's different.
Yeah, they're not feared in the same way. They're just different.
Right.
It reminded me a lot of the Black Dagger Brotherhood, actually. Because they don't have to feed on the human. Like, they're not like the creepy guys in the coffin hunting everybody down.
They're just another species.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to feed on humans. That's not ever brought up. So they're not a huge threat to anyone.
Yeah, she makes it seem like it's taboo to actually feed on somebody.
And there's also underworld vibes with the politics and then the interspecies relations.
And all the technology they have too. And of course the hybrid aspect. So also, unlike a lot of the vampire lore, they aren't the apex predators. They're actually on the edge of extinction because their birth rates are really low.
Like you said, Weres are faster, they're stronger, they're more violent. And humans, of course, can't stop procreating. So the vampire are nervous. Like they're on the low, what is it, the totem pole?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because like humans may not be as strong, but they can have much greater numbers faster than the vampire can.
Right.
And faster than the werewolves. So the city is divided between the local were pack and the vampires who live at the capital in Nest. That's what they call it, the Nest. But the rest of the region is almost exclusively humans.
What does that remind me of, the Nest? It reminds me of that video game that became a movie. Wasn't that called The Nest or something? And it was like an inverted pyramid that went underground. What am I thinking of?
Oh my God, I don't know.
And then the undead are down there. It's like its own city. God, that's going to drive me crazy. It had the guy from Ugly Betty in it.
What? I have so many extra questions. Like, what?
And it had that really hot model that became an actress.
You're talking about when there's like, not redemption.
But is it?
No,
it's
but
not.
There's like 10 of them out.
Right. There's several.
Mila Jovovich is the main actress. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Why would you do
that?
What is
that called? Oh God. I know people are probably listening, screaming at us.
Okay. Well, you guys know what we mean.
But I swear that's called, I don't know if it's called The Nest, but it's called something like that.
Okay, hold on to your shorts. I'm pulling up IMDb.
I have to hold on to my shorts. I think I started my period.
Oh God.
I liked these panties too.
I think I spelled her name wrong. Mila.
That's a huge
it's Mila.
bummer.
Is it Jovovich? Yeah, Jovovich. There's a Mila Jovanovic. Don't get it wrong. Oh, it's Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
I knew there was something with an R. Okay.
Wait, do they call it The Nest? You don't have to look that up.
Okay.
It's something like that.
Honestly, it feels like, oh my God, Underworld. They may have no, I think they called it The Nest or Headquarters or something, but I could see it having a similar
name. And that
name.
was Craven, right? Was his name Craven?
Yeah.
God, he was sexy. You know how she like would not marry him? I would have absolutely married him.
He was such a creep though. But we always like the hot ones. So.
What is that? Is it Scott Speed? Is that his name?
That was the guy that ended up being the hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have chosen Craven. Out of the two of them.
I don't know.
Really?
I liked him in that, was it Felicity or whatever that TV show was that was on like the WB back in the day?
What was the scary movie he was in with Liv Tyler? The Others?
Oh my God, was that him?
Someone knocks on the door.
Yeah, that was so creepy.
Was it called The Others? That's not right. No, that's Nicole Kidman.
I know what you're talking about though, where those people in masks show up randomly to torment them.
That's based on a real story.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a whole side tangent. Scott Speedman, you're hot. I think he ends up on Grey's Anatomy too.
But back to, you were saying that the rest of the region is almost exclusively humans.
Yeah, so like there's only like a single bridge that exists between where the were and the vampire live, but access is closely surveilled. So like they try to keep everybody separate, I guess, for safety reasons.
Well, and you understand from the very beginning that shit is tense between the were, the vampire, and the humans.
Yeah, like the power balance is really like on a knife's edge.
And a lot of that tension can be traced back to the Aster, or what that we learn the vampire are the only ones that call it the Aster. But it is a bloodbath named for those purple flowers, because vampire's blood is purple and were's blood is green.
Which is weird, because when she talks about biting later, I'm like, ugh. Drinking green blood. I'm expecting.
Ooh, brother. Ooh.
Wait. Yeah. Because that took me a minute. I was like, okay, so the last time when they tried to have some sort of middle ground and peace and tried to like bond a vampire and a were to like
the sixth wedding or something.
Yeah, to like have peace between their peoples. There was a bloodbath, and they called it the Aster.
Propaganda. Like, I mean, God, we were just talking about House of the Dragon, the propaganda, all the propaganda in Crescent City. It's like, it's almost like it's real.
So up until this point, the vampire and humans have been in an alliance, but there's a new governor-elect, Maddie Garcia, and she's refusing to meet with our FMC's father. So she's about to change the power balance. She also plans on ending the collateral program, which is an interesting It's interesting.
It is very
when you look into
interesting.
the details.
Just for one, like for there to be one, like it would make sense if there were a group, but and I don't want any kids to die, but if it was like, we're gonna kill this one kid, I'd be
Well,
like,
that's a
well,
very, very tentative peace balance. You
mhm.
know, like, I guess that's the way they decided the only way they can have peace, but I'm like, that doesn't feel peaceful. That feels like really like anxiety inducing.
Well, and I know that the vampire are, it's hard for them to have children, so they're probably a little more special.
Well,
But
they also take people that are really close to those in power because they're trying to make
those
sure.
they don't actually give it, like Misery's father didn't actually give a shit about her.
I know that doesn't help anything. Yeah.
It's not actually that much collateral.
But yeah, so Maddie Garcia, this governor-elect, is talking about ending the collateral program, and there's a chance she's in like diplomatic talks with the Weres, so the vampire may lose some of their power balance.
And peace between the humans and vampires has been ensured by the 100 years by that collateral system. So, like we were saying, the vampire basically hold a human child hostage for 10 years with the mutual understanding that if the humans violate the terms of the alliance, the child will be murdered. And then,
And then the humans hold a vampire child for the same reason.
yeah.
Wow, what a great
Nice.
childhood for everybody. Like, that sounds
I would
awful.
love to, if they were like, you got to go live with the nest, I'd be like, nice.
I'd be like, are you guys going to eat me?
But I'm
like anytime I do
assuming
something
that they're
wrong?
all hot. And I don't actually know.
Yeah.
Because it's not really talked about them being like more beautiful.
Well, they all have purple eyes. So I'm also like, eventually,
Maurice?
does that kind of get boring? If everybody has
Yeah.
the same eye color, like, do you guys have different hair color? I have more questions. Anyway, please continue.
We think about the weirdest things. One of those vampire children that were held collateral it's our FMC, Misery. Misery, whose father is
Sad
a
name.
councilman. And what did you first think when you were reading it and you saw Misery? Capital M Misery.
It felt like sad foreshadowing, like her whole life is going to be miserable.
Right.
I mean, she's always been a pawn in her father's political scheming. So it's like her name has kind of made it come true.
Well, and she is still a pawn, which is why the book is opening with a wedding. Misery's wedding to the Alpha Were. Low.
We've got an arranged marriage, y'all.
The tropes were troping. I started thinking about it, and I bet their registry was on the Knot. I have a lot of those jokes.
I mean, it's perfect, though, for what's coming. It's basically like an adult version of the collateral program. She stays with the Weres for a year, and
a Were named Gabby.
A Were named Gabby. I'd forgotten her. Was it Gabrielle? I forgot. A Were named Gabby lives at the nest with Misery's brother, Owen. Like
Misery is like, fuck off as soon as she hears the plan, but then she hears who she's going to be marrying. And this aspect of it reminded me of House of Earth and Blood because it's kind of a mystery wrapped up in a fantasy or paranormal or shifter romance, whatever you want to call it.
Honestly, it kind of reminded me of, I always want to call it the Dark Face series. It's the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac, like the
Which
prequel.
you have someone reading right now, and they're not into it.
Sorry, I was.
What did she say? She was like, I don't want to read about a threesome. Well, you're not going to like the
I know, sorry. I don't think you know what the reverse harem's about then. But I mean, because like she kind of goes in not undercover, but with ulterior motives to like figure out what happened to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And just like Bryce, it's the BFF that's at the center of this mystery. But we aren't investigating a murder, or at least Misery doesn't think her childhood best friend, who is Serena Paris, she doesn't think she's dead.
But she has been missing for a month.
Which is very sus.
Right. If you went missing for a month, yeah, I would
look
be
into this a little faster.
I would also have to go marry an Alpha Were. I would do that for you.
Thank you. I know you would really hate the nodding aspect of it.
Oh, we'll talk about what I thought nodding was.
Oh.
And I definitely thought someone was just tying their dick off.
That seems more painful than anyway. Okay, please continue.
I was like, without your hands? Anyway, the only clue Misery has is a note that was left in Serena's planner that said L.E. Moreland. Well, it said L.E. Moreland like in their little made-up language.
Yeah, and she assumes it's a reference for Lo Moreland, the very Alpha Were her father wants her to marry. So she hears his name, she's like, if you insist.
Yeah, so she agrees mostly so she can investigate, but also because she's used to being a pawn. So I think that the sad reality is even if the Serena aspect hadn't been in there, she probably would have been like, whatever, like, fuck.
I mean, like, she was annoyed when he first mentioned it and she jumped on his name, but it also seemed like one of those, like, well, what else do I have going on? Because I can't find my friend and you just lost me my job.
And that was something that Serena, one of her biggest problems with Misery, she was like, you have to fucking care about something.
Yeah.
So she's very apathetic.
Yeah. Which means that her sense of humor is dry and hilarious, but it's sad because, like, if you care about one thing, then you have to care about your childhood and all the other things and all the times people tried to kill you. But anyway.
So that combination of apathy and worrying about her friends is why the book is opening with her wedding.
Yeah. It's the very first time she's meeting Lo also.
And we get a classic Edward Cullen smelling Bella in biology. Like, he's just like a,
Ugh.
ugh, brother, ugh. Sorry, I'll stop saying that. I can't.
I mean, it's the perfect, like, soundtrack, though, because he's like, ugh, and she's like, great, whatever.
Great.
Before we find out what the fuck Lo's deal is with Misery's scent, they exchange rings and we jump back in time for chapter 1.
Misery is living among the humans who have no idea that she's Vampyre until, is it Vania?
Yeah, Vania.
Vania? Her father's head guard, Vania, pops up at her tech job and tells her that she has been summoned. And like, when she uses that word, everyone's like,
well, also, doesn't she flash some fang at one of the assholes that's bothering Misery? So, like, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for scaring everybody out of the building. I probably just lost my job. Great. Just perfect. This is where Misery learns everything about what's going on with the humans in the Were and who her father wants her to marry and everything.
Back in present day, Misery is told by the outgoing Governor Davenport that the Were collateral, so the one going to live at the nest, is Lo's mate.
I mean, thanks for telling me that at my wedding. Not that I'm in love with this guy, but you just made my life even harder. You know, this miscommunication trope is alive and well throughout the book, thanks to that little tidbit.
Yeah, the miscommunication is miscommunicating a little too hard. It started to get on my nerves.
Lo doesn't help, but we can get into that.
From the very beginning, it did not make sense to me that an alpha Were would send his mate to live with the vampires. Like, mates in this book are rare, and there are literal physiological changes involved with meeting your mate, so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, he's not gonna let her, like, leave the room without him, let alone go somewhere else with their enemy.
But yeah, like, physiological changes.
Yeah, the physiological changes, like, you know, just a hint when Lo gets a whiff of Misery.
I mean, I was screaming at my book so many times because from chapter 1, it is so fucking obvious that she is his mate. But it does make you wonder why, or if Vampyre and Weres, there's much more mates and they just never interact. Like, if you have to have that first meeting, kind of like the bond snapping into place.
And also, I think there's a generalization that they assume that they wouldn't be able to procreate. So, like, it doesn't even occur to them that there could be other options elsewhere. They just, like, look within their own species because they're like, no, that's it.
You know, have we ever talked about the possibility of your mate being in another world in the Massverse?
We did. I think we touched on it.
Well, are mates rare in Crescent City because of the parasite, or because your mate could be in Prithian?
I mean, considering they came from the same peoples, both are possibilities.
Right.
I hope we get more information about that too. Or we talked about that, but like
them crossing and vacationing in the other world.
And then also, if they defeat the parasite, how many more maids are going to pop up in Crescent City?
Exactly.
You know, like maybe that's why Ethan notices Perry scent more.
That's what I thought, that kind of the timing was interesting.
Yeah. So, sorry, back to Bride. At her wedding, bless her, we get the first but not the last attempt on Misery's life. And it's during their first dance.
How romantic. What do you think their first dance was?
Oh, God, I don't know.
What's like a classic first dance? Neither of us are married.
No, it would be nothing romantic. It would definitely be something like very basic, like classical music they chose.
Just like elevator music?
Probably, because everybody's like, okay, well, this is fun.
It's over with. It is, yeah, the wedding is very tense. Like, no one trusts anybody. I can't remember if it's human guards because the Were and Vampyre don't trust the other to have.
So they're trying to keep it all like even, so there's not too many of one, like too many Vampyre or too many Were in the vicinity.
And then her first night in her new home, alone on her wedding night, Misery is woken up by a child named Anna.
That child is so brave. I think Anna and Misery's relationship is my favorite.
A lot of my LOLs were from their interactions. Like, what does she call her? Mercery or something?
Yeah, Mercy or something.
It's cute and it's funny. And I think that Anna, she really acted as a bridge between Lo and Misery. Like, a lot of the reasons they started talking more and trusting each other more, it was because of Anna.
Well, and excuse me, besides her best friend, Misery has not really been able or allowed to let her guard down with anybody. So she's kind of told herself that maybe she just doesn't have as many feelings, but Anna doesn't really let her go behind her wall. She's like, no, you can't dissuade me.
Even her birthday, she's like, vampires don't really have birthdays. And she's like, no, what's your birthday?
So precious.
We're having a party. She's very cute.
Yeah. And so like, Anna is Lo's little sister, according to Juno, who immediately hates Misery.
As do most of the wolves or whatever. I'm gonna mix it up. Just know what we're talking about. And if they don't hate Misery, they're still terrified of her, like Alex, who Misery is constantly baiting. And I think that's one of the funniest parts of the book.
Especially because it lasts the whole time. And he's like, she could eat me at any moment.
I ate a bunch of garlic. Get away from me.
I would have gone after you a long time ago if that's how it worked, Alex.
The only one that she really gets along with is a guard. She gets along with Alex, but the only one that she kind of is comfortable around her is Mick. It's an older guard.
Well, he's kind of like, he's warm towards her. He doesn't seem to hold it against her that she's Vampyre. Ali gave the side characters a lot of personality in this, which I appreciated. It added to like the depth of it all.
Right. And there's also side dramas. There's a drama within the Were packs.
Which again, so she may not have gone like on super intensive world building overall, but she's still like building out more for these characters in their current lives. Like,
it's more political. Like, we get a lot into the hierarchy and political system.
And it makes sense though. If you have somebody new in power, people are going to oppose it. So I appreciate that she gave us some more backstory on it. The previous Alpha's mate, Emery, is the leader of they call it the Loyalists.
And Max, he's a member of Lo's pack. He tries to kidnap Anna for the loyalist.
Yeah.
And I think Misery, when she goes after Anna, is a big turning point because she sees it happening from a window and she runs outside into the sun.
Yeah. She really
stop it.
Basically sacrifices her own health.
Well, yeah, exactly. Anna. And then the wolves are like attacking her, like, stop, because I guess there was a sting operation. But I feel like Lo, seeing her do that, he was like, okay.
Yeah. She had no idea, and she genuinely meant well here.
Right.
We learn about the Loyalists, but also that vampires can, quote, thrall, which is basically hypnosis. It's very True Blood.
Yes, and Misery can technically thrall, but she's bad at it, and I think that that's actually kind of refreshing. Like, she's not like other girls in that she's worse at stuff.
Yeah.
And that is very different than a lot of the other books that we've read.
They're like automatically badasses at everything.
And she considers herself overall a bad vampire. It makes sense because she was raised among the humans because of the collateral system. And then she chose to stay there, and she's been filing her fangs.
Which is wild. She could just like not smile with her upper, like she could just like do like closed mouth smiles.
What if someone tells a joke?
I don't think she's hanging out with a lot of people.
Laughing.
But I mean, she really tried to like blend in with them. And I think it's probably for the best that she wasn't raised with the vampire, because maybe she would be
warmer. Well,
I say maybe she would be better at thrall, or maybe like in their society, it's not that big a deal to use it, and she'd be more comfortable using it when she shouldn't. So like, it only works to her benefit that she's not big on it.
Well, and we're kind of led to believe that like thrall isn't used. I don't know. When I was reading it, it seemed kind of like, this is something they can do, but like it's not a big deal. But then we learn that like her dad's actually really fucking good at it.
Well, I mean, all these things, she knows that what she was taught, but she didn't really live with the vampire long enough. So she'd be like, well, I think that's taboo or not acceptable, but you know, you can be raised one way, and that's not how people actually live their lives.
Like when she eats peanut butter, and that would be so embarrassing.
Bless her heart. And then, you know, we get to a point like Lo starting to trust her a little more, and then he catches her hacking his computer.
And it's not even the first time that she broke into his room.
Which I'm sure he could smell, but whatever.
Oh, we learned that he smelled, remember?
Yeah. He's like, what were you doing in my underwear drawer? Which honestly, that's the least exciting for me. But, you know, the first time when she broke in is when she found a bunch of his architectural sketches.
And a sketch of herself. And it's, of course, really good because we learn about him living abroad and wanting to be an architect. But when I pictured it, it's kind of like when I picture Feyre, I thought about like a carnival caricature.
I mean, but those are still pretty good. Like Fair, I'm seeing stick figures.
I am, but like they pick out what you are most. What's the word I'm looking for? Like what you hate most about yourself.
Like your nose will be huge.
Yeah,
your chin is
you're
huge.
like, how did you even
thanks.
pick up on that I hate my gums?
Thanks so much. Yeah. There's another series where somebody comes across drawings of themselves. Actually, it might also be the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac. I think Gabriel has drawings of her or something. Anyway. That's
something that in IRL might be a little creepy. You'd be like, oh my God.
I mean, take a picture, it'll last longer. No, it's a nice thought, but like, yeah, I don't know, interesting.
Like if you were at this has happened, like a coffee shop and like a guy is drawing on a napkin or something and gives you like a little sketch of yourself, are you like, what do you do?
Depends like if the guy gives creep vibes or if he's hot.
It depends if he's hot.
Yeah, I know that sounds terrible. It depends if he's hot. It depends on like the way he approaches me. I don't know, because if it's just a quick sketch, it's not like you followed me around and did that.
Right.
I don't know. But Lo and Misery are always bantering, and they're clearly attracted to each other, so it's easy to forget how powerful Lo is and what a precarious position that Misery is in.
And it's not just Misery either. She is there representing all of the vampires, which is crazy because she's like the least vampire, but she was representing everyone. So if Lo thinks that she is double crossing him, that could lead to literal war.
And that's a lot to weigh on your shoulders because also like if I F up here or if they assume something has happened, I have to worry about Lo's mate.
Mm-hmm.
Like he will never recover from that. The people won't recover. Like it's so much more. Misery tells him the truth that she's looking for her BFF Serena and she found a clue that she thought pointed to Lo. But as Misery finds out, it wasn't Lo that Serena was interested in. It was Liliana Esther Moreland.
AKA Anna.
Oh.
It's Anna who isn't like other girls. She and Lo share the same mother who was aware, but Anna's... No, wait. Yeah, they share the same mother who was aware, but Anna's father was a human.
Yep.
And mixed species is unheard of, which is surprising because I feel like in other shows and movies and books, they're always fucking. Well, like interspecies fucking.
I was gonna say they've kept themselves separate for so long. I'm like, how do you? Because like the understanding is that it can't happen, and I'm like, why do we assume that?
Yeah,
you guys are separate. That doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means you don't like interact a lot.
So telling Misery this is a pretty big deal.
That's a big leap of faith. Even like if you guys are starting to bond a bit, like that's a lot.
They're like, if this is enemies and this is lovers, they're like at 30%.
We're doing okay. But wow.
And it's not just Lo who's warming up to Misery. That bitch Juno actually apologizes because I was expecting her to be a very one-dimensional female hating female.
Well,
but
and
she kind of develops.
In the beginning when she kind of protects the wolf that comes after Misery, like her first day there, I assume she's more loyalist, but I guess more than anything, she's just protective of those in the house. So like she's protective of Anna, and then Misery sticks her neck out for Anna. So like she's like, okay, maybe I was wrong, which I love that.
Maybe we'll get her love story one day. Maybe this is going to be a series, and it'll be.
I mean, it could be the next book is somebody within the world. So now Lo is interested in whatever it is that Serena was doing that involved Anna, and he assigns poor, terrified Alex to help.
It's like, Alex, you'll be working with Misery. And Alex is like, what?
I thought I got out of this.
Misery overhears Alex trying to teach total boomer Lo something on the computer, and it's not going well because he's trying to teach him, and Lo's like, I'll just figure it out.
Yeah, I can do this. Whoa. Lo has been invited to Emery's, which again, she is the previous Alpha's mate. And while there, he's hoping to install some spyware to prove her involvement with rebellion. That's like asking my mom, who barely knows how to search the internet. Like, can you go install some spyware? No.
Literally, while we were talking just now, something popped up that said antivirus something, and I was like, click, exit. I have no idea.
No.
My iPhone will be like, this password has been included in a data leak. Do you ever get those?
No.
And I'm like, uh-oh.
But yeah, like, don't click on something. Yeah, it just like this. It's the worst casting for what we need here.
Well, it was my Kava. My Kava password was involved in a leak, and I was like, they're gonna know what bowls I ordered. Okay.
That's so random.
You know, I guess my card's attached to it, so maybe I should.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
Okay. Sorry.
But anyway, so like this whole like spyware situation where Lo has to be good with computers, it just doesn't feel like it's
there's
his
no way
wheelhouse.
that Lo is going to be able to pull off installing spy software. But
Yeah.
you know who can? Misery.
Oh, who's also married to him. So it would make sense for her to travel with her husband.
Mhm.
Like, come on, guys. In this conversation, we learn a lot about Lo and the Weres in general.
Lo was living in Zurich, and we've been there. That's our
Beautiful.
flex.
Loved it.
Beautiful. It was actually like maybe my least favorite place that we went.
There was
in
not a whole
Switzerland.
lot to do in Zurich,
Mm-mm.
you know, like in the city itself.
It was so expensive.
But yeah, but it was pretty. I
A
enjoyed
lot
it.
of chocolate.
Yes.
What year was that? Like 2019? I can't remember.
It was right before COVID hit.
Yeah.
Changed everything.
Anyway, so I just had to bring that up. I was like, oh, Zurich?
Flex, I've been there.
He was living in Zurich studying, and then he was working as an architect. So
Hence
back to
his
those
sketches.
drawings.
Yeah.
He got a phone call that his mom had been wounded after she vocally opposed the last Alpha Roscoe.
Which is really big of her because that guy sounded unhinged.
Right. Roscoe, I don't think he I don't know. I can't remember what they say, but I don't think he started off as a really bad
No, it
guy.
like worsened in the recent years or something.
Right. And so Lo comes back. He challenges Roscoe. He wins. And so new seconds were elected. Like all of the like number 2 guys. So
Yeah.
Kendall and everyone, they're all new to the job.
Except for Mick. He's the only one who kept his position.
Mick's mate died 2 years ago during a border confrontation.
And so did his 16-year-old son, allegedly.
Didn't it say that, or did I get that wrong? Because until the big reveal, I thought that Mick's son was dead.
Yeah, no,
presumed dead.
I'm pretty sure it says that he lost his family.
Okay. And the convo then turns to mates, which Lo explains that they're rare, that scent plays a huge part.
I love that she's like, do I still stink? I bathe. And he's like, I'm talking about scent and mates. Are we not listening?
But what the mates also, there's the scent aspect, but then there's also biting. And it's not painful, he says, not if it's done right. And he's like, I think she says, if it's done right. He husks.
Okay, sir. But it's like it's reciprocal, right? Like both mates should feel it, Misery asks.
He doesn't answer, which she assumes is confirmation, and she's like, oh, that's fucking terrible. You know, like if one mate knows and the other doesn't, and Lo disagrees. It would be devastating, but there would be pleasure and satisfaction just knowing that your mate exists, that your mate's out there.
I mean, that's a sweet thought, but that is like a lifetime of misery if they're with someone else.
A lifetime of misery? Yeah, it he's a little over the top when it comes to the not wanting to tie her down or
like a mate that doesn't reciprocate your feeling. I can understand not wanting anybody to feel trapped into a bond like that, and I appreciate that that's possible to not accept a bond.
Reese, I guess, when he was over the top about letting Feyre make her own decisions.
Yeah, well, because like, you know, a lot of the books we read, it's like, okay, we're mated, we're fated, it's going to happen, you can't get out of this. So I appreciate that there's the ability to be like, no, I'm not going to force this on somebody. But also he doesn't look at the possibility that the person could still reciprocate it.
Well, there's clearly something going on between them, so he's just being a big weirdo.
It's the way he like describes it that like, okay, that sounds sweet, but it doesn't really sound like it has anything to do with his mate, or maybe either way, it's unclear.
Misery is presented as like bright and you know, like it just seems like she would have picked up on it before she did.
But like also like the culture of the vampires or vampires, like
they are very cold.
I mean, she was living with the humans more than the vampires, but it just seems like there's certain things for her that I guess were not nurtured enough. I don't want to say underdeveloped, but because like the vampire culture doesn't care.
Yeah.
She hasn't had a chance to like think about those things as much. If that makes sense.
It makes you wonder how Owen turned out the way he did, because
Owen's an interesting character. Maybe the next book is his.
Maybe it's him and Gabby.
He sounds like he's a dirty boy.
I mean, who were you picturing? Because I pictured it very like I
mean, it would make sense.
Like
if
I
it's
pictured
Gabby.
the nest is like not what's the word I'm looking for? Not like a hospital. It's just very like
it sounds very sterile.
Sterile.
Like
yes,
everything
very
is like
sterile,
white,
very clinical, white.
There's no personality.
Yes, that's exactly what I was picturing. So I pictured him as a very like bland white guy, because nobody's been described as like
Well, and I don't know
gorgeous
all
or
about their hierarchy, but it sounds like a lot of the way they run things in the nest is very similar to communism, isn't that it's for the greater
it
good. It's
is.
not one person above
You're a
another. So
communist.
like, I don't know, there's some underdeveloped feelings these people have. They
Mhm.
need more. But yeah, maybe there will be another book and it'll be about Owen. I hadn't
I
thought about
hope
that, but
so.
I'd be okay with it.
But it's well, and maybe no, I guess it would be. I was about to say Owen and Serena, but it would be Serena and another character.
Maybe Serena and Juno will have a minute.
I think it's going to be Serena and Cohen because isn't there a little moment where Cohen's like,
Which one's Cohen?
he
He's the
is
Kindle?
no, he's another alpha
Oh, he's the redhead.
we're about to meet.
Oh, okay. JK. Forget
But
I said all that.
yeah, so it's just but back to what we were saying about mates.
Yeah.
It's like I guess it doesn't cross Misery's mind because she's never even really known love outside of her friend.
Well, and also they use it for continuing the species. And since vampires have so much trouble reproducing, having a mate would actually hinder the ability to
Exactly.
reproduce. So like it hasn't
They
really
discourage bonds with
yeah.
anybody.
I guess it hasn't occurred to her because it's so different.
She can't like I don't know, she can't even comprehend love. That's kind of sad.
Yeah, well, or just like having a bond that's just for the two of you, since everybody basically sounds like they share each other.
But and that's why Misery is special is when she tried to like she was living with the humans, she was sent back to the vampire, and then she went back to the humans because she just didn't fit in. And it kind of reminded me of Vampire Diaries, you know, when a character's humanity has been switched on or off.
Yeah.
Like hers has been switched on, but like several in the nest. It's just not that they're cruel.
You can't
I
go
don't
back
think,
though. Well,
but they
don't accept her. They bully her one way or the other. I think they bullied her when she was little.
Yeah, you're right.
Like as if it was her choice.
Yeah.
Lo agrees to let Misery go with them to Emery's, but she's going to have to be marked.
There's going to be BJs in the PJ.
They aren't taking a road trip. Lo is flying them there on a private jet.
Honey, are we rich? I love lines like that. Like when he's like, yes, sweetie.
Yes, sweetheart. They're just banned from most human-owned airlines.
But everyone shut the fuck up because it is time for him to scent her. I loved this. I loved the tension and the longing, and it reminded me of Feyre and Rhys in the inn. Like I love that. I don't even know what you call that trope of just like the guy holding back. I love it.
Well, and I mean, and he's going to do it in the traditional way.
I would vote whatever way is him dragging his dick across my face.
Ow. His knotted dick.
But that's me. I'm not a traditionalist.
You know, whatever. It does entail rubbing his skin against hers, though, but it's his tongue. His tongue, too.
His tongue. He asked for permission, and we love a consent king.
But we also love being thrown up against a wall while we're protesting.
We are complicated.
Lightly protesting.
Lightly protesting.
We might not get actual spice in this scene, but the tension is really steamy. I was here for it.
I was like curling down into I'm on my lazy boy. I love my lazy boy to read. And I have my fake fireplace. Like I say fireplace into my remote and a fireplace pops up.
Perfect.
And I was reading about it and I was just like sliding down with like a maniacal grin on my face. Like,
it's one of those things where you're like, everybody shut the fuck up. Nobody bother me right now.
I literally start to curl inward onto my book when I'm reading and I'm like, there's no one in the room and I'm like, shh.
Honestly, I'll be fine because I read this on my phone and like my Kindle
I don't know
app.
how you do that.
Well, that's the only thing is like somebody will start texting me right then. I'm like, can we not right now?
I know all
Go
the
away.
notifications and pop-ups I'd have to put it on, I guess.
I know I have to pay it, but like you don't know when that scene's coming. So like,
but if you ever have your phone on
silent.
do not disturb and I try to call or text and it says like you can bypass it and I'm like, yep, I'm important. She'll want to know this.
Immediately like ignore. Oh well. But it is very sexy, especially
Very
when he
sexy.
finally says, I fucking love your scent. And
And
she's been worried about it.
I know. Oh God, it was so good. And then it escalates into a bite.
You know, like mate's bite.
And you are not going to believe how many beds there are.
What are the odds? Emery, it turns out, is pretty normal and nice, or she at least appears to be that way.
Like maybe she was not the villain of the story all along, but maybe she will be in the next book. I don't know, because at the end there are some moments where it's like, oh no, she wasn't behind that, but
There's
she
still
was
some
doing other
problems
stuff
here. Yeah, she's still undermining his authority. I mean, I guess I wouldn't expect her to be like really sweet to Misery, but she wasn't kind, and I noticed. After dinner, Lo admits that he's never scented someone before, because his mate doesn't know she's his mate.
Misery, it started to get on my nerves eventually. Loved it, loved Misery, loved Lo. You fucking know that's your mate. Like, come on. He literally said, how many times is he like, I just would never take my mate's freedom, not when so many have already taken her freedom. Who do you think he's talking about?
Very obviously spelling it out. But I guess it could still be Gabby, who's been like also sacrificed for a year.
Like, where is he going to have to not for you to fucking understand that is your mate?
But you know what? Back to that one bed. Lo's like, he has insomnia, no way he's sleeping. But, then he's suddenly snoozing away after she scratches his scalp.
And I also have insomnia, and you never scratch my scalp.
I'm not touchy-feely. Sorry in advance.
I love when someone scratches my head, but that's like that one of those micro tropes that we talked about. I love is like he sleeps so soundly next to her. Like he's been needed her his entire life.
Which is so sweet.
I do not sleep well next to other people because I'm a very light sleeper.
So like I could scratch your head, then I have to tiptoe away.
You have to leave because I get really hot when I'm sleeping.
Can't make any sound on my way out.
So you just have to like cartoon tiptoe out.
Got it. We meet Cohen the next day. Oh, right. Cohen. Okay.
I'm assuming
his
that's
uncle,
how you say
right?
it. Well, no, he was sent to live with him, but I don't think they're
uncle.
technically related.
Okay. Because Cohen's related to Emery. My bad. In my head, it was like his uncle.
Yeah, I think that's his aunt.
He's good friends with Cohen because he did live with him, but I guess they're not related. But Cohen's the alpha of the Northwest Pack, who Lo was sent to live with when he was 12.
Because Roscoe was such a little bitch that he was threatened or intimidated by a 12-year-old. Like, it was pretty obvious early on that Lo was going to be very powerful.
I mean, it's just like Voldemort. You're like setting me up.
Is it?
You're setting me up to be your enemy. If you had left me alone, half this shit wouldn't have happened. But like,
he should have just killed him, right?
Okay.
I mean,
if you're really that worried, sure. Just
if I were Roscoe, which by the way, Roscoe, what that name, every time I saw it just made me laugh.
Roscoe makes me think of like a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
Like a dog. But I guess they're wolves.
I mean, they are.
Cohen is someone that Lo clearly trusts and respects. He's also an ally who has offered to distract Emery.
Misery describes Cohen as an asshole in the most entertaining and delicious ways. I have not, like we said, I haven't seen any news about a second book, but I would totally read Cohen's love story with a certain hybrid.
He's like the fun asshole that you love because he gets on everybody's skin and like messes with them, and he's honest but also playful, so you don't quite hate him.
Yeah, he and Serena, I think, would have very fun banter.
And some dirty sex is what I'm hearing.
Dirty sex.
Misery and Lo excuse themselves from the dinner table, under the guise that Misery needs to eat or feed, and they sneak into Emery's room with plans to install spyware onto her computer.
It's one of those classic, like, the clock is counting down. He can hear the guards coming, but then so the spyware isn't installed yet. They need a distraction, and it just has a very sharp twist.
Well, I mean, she's supposed to be feeding, so feed from me, he tells her. You have to bite me.
She sinks her fangs into his neck right as the door to the office opens, and the guards are like, ah! And they close the door.
Whoa, sorry. That's a real marriage. My bad. The distraction worked, but it turns out it worked a little too much, and so much more as the first few drops of Lo's blood hit Misery's stomach.
Breasts are shallow, asses are cupped, cores throbbing.
Oh, the way they describe some of those things, I'm like, yeah. But it's not just Misery that's enjoying this feeding.
And she does enjoy it to completion. Her first.
I mean, the way they kind of describe it, I'm like, is there like a big explosion through the house? Like, is there more happening than just with her? Like, it is very intensive build up.
Well, think about if you're her age and you've never had an orgasm. What is she? Was she 25 or something?
Again, she's kind of put all of her feelings on mute. So, like, if you don't feel the bad things, you can keep going, but you also don't get to feel some of the good. So, like, her world is opening in a lot of ways. And Lo is straight up shook.
Yeah, it's not just her world.
He is real turned on, but he also knows who she is. He's smitten and, other things.
Luckily, Misery removes the USB before Emery and her guards burst in, and they're disgusted. They see what's happening, and they're like, oh.
Sorry, we're married. What's your problem? I mean, I guess, but like the feeding from somebody is what everybody's been afraid of Misery for from the beginning.
Right. But I mean, it's obvious Lo. I guess they could assume that he's under the thrall or...
There's a lot. I mean, well, because also if this is a marriage of convenience, you're not going to sink to let her feed from you, right?
Mhm.
That's disgusting. We don't actually like her. We're just allowing her here. So, like, he's crossing some boundaries for all of them, I guess, when it comes to
Mhm.
her. But Lo and Misery are leaving anyway after Cal calls and tells them to come home tonight because something's going on with Anna.
Mick says that Anna started having a low fever after Lo and Misery left, and it has progressed into shivering, and she's saying that her bones hurt.
Oh, it sounds like the flu, poor baby. Wares don't get sick.
But Anna is half human, and luckily, Misery lived with humans long enough to understand their medicine.
Yeah, the fact that she like knows exactly what to give her.
I wouldn't.
Like,
I would be like, have you Googled it?
There's a little more things we need to know between there, but fortunately she can help. Mick keeps trying to take Anna to the human territory, but Misery is like, will you chill out?
It's very sus. Like in my reread to do this outline, I was like, oh.
Yeah, there's more
there's a lot.
like red flags that pop up that you're
Mhm.
like, oh, that's, okay.
Mhm.
Misery lies and tells Alex that Lo wants a list of humans who were part of the Human Wear Bureau 5 to 10 years ago, human men who would have interacted with the pack.
Right around the time that Anna was conceived. Owen figures out that Misery has fed from Lo. They're like in a FaceTime or something, and he's like, "Uh-oh, girl, you in danger."
But also when she asks him about it, he's like, gross.
She's yeah, I know, but she's
like,
also
how's
like,
she supposed to
in
know?
theory.
It's like sex ed from your brother. Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
not how I wanted that to go. But it's also not normal for a were to let a vampire feed from them.
No, it's not. It's Misery's she's trying to explain what has happened to her brother, and I do think it was funny that she's like, "It was really," and he's like, "Yeah, I went through puberty. I'm aware what feeding is like."
But
She's
again,
just, she's new. She's kind of new to being a vampire. Like she had never fed. Instincts took over,
it
so she's
also
experiencing all of this.
would have been easier, I think, if it was like a sister telling her what's up.
Right.
Like,
He's like, I don't want to know.
He's like, duh. Don't duh me. I went through puberty with humans. Come on.
There was no one to talk to.
Where was I feeding from? Nobody. Drinking from a live source is not just hard to separate from sex. It has hormonal and biological consequences that are small.
Like us drinking milk.
Any dairy, but it can build up over time, which sounds very much like mate changes. I'm just saying.
Owen doesn't say exactly what those consequences are, but I think that he just means for vampire, forming a bond is the worst thing that can happen because they're all about having as many babies as possible.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that those are the consequences, but also it's just part of the propaganda of trying to keep those species separate.
Yeah. Well, because I'm sure there's like an emotional, like as you start to like, I guess when they bond over scent and taste and whatever else, and the vampires can't do that. They have to hop beds. Sorry, I just can't speak anymore.
Hop it up.
Hop. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda, but also vampires fuck as many people as possible to reproduce. So again, bonding would be like a bad consequence.
Later, when Misery is sneaking some peanut butter, Lo asks about the search that she asked Alex to do.
Misery thinks she might be able to track down Serena using Anna's human father, that maybe that's who told her about Anna.
Then right in the middle, they're having a like, what's happening between us convo. Misery just passes the fuck out.
That's one way to get out of the defining our relationship conversation.
It's like, what are we?
Yeah.
Misery is in a ton of pain. She's drifting in and out of consciousness while Lo is in a straight panic, not just in a my fake wife has passed out.
Well, like they don't get sick. So like what? And I don't know what happens with vampires. So like what is going on here? She wakes up to find a vampire doctor that she recognizes.
And she's like, not the mustache. And those are the little moments that made me laugh. That's like, that's exactly how we talk.
Well, because instead of panicking about what's going on, she's like, oh, come on. I appreciate that. Misery has been poisoned. So as the doctor explains to Lo, she'll slip into a healing trance.
Where she will look dead, but in a good way because her body is fighting the infection. But that is very like old school vampire to me.
Yeah.
Looking dead.
Yeah. I mean, like, especially if she's healing internally. And at some point, she's going to need to feed more, in both frequency and quantity.
And the fresher, the better.
All right, sir, do you know something?
The doctor has to tell Misery's father. I don't think I ever said this, Councilman Lark. I don't know if we ever know his name.
I don't know.
He's just Councilman
Maybe.
Lark. but he could see this poisoning as a declaration of war. Like, so it's a
So,
pretty big deal for him to find
yeah,
out.
let's be careful how we bring that across. Misery briefly wakes to a convo between Lo, Mick, Cal, and Juno, who are debating whether Misery was actually the intended target, and it's decided that Anna should be taken to a safe place because she's a vampire. Misery shouldn't be eating.
And when she's in and out of consciousness, it's the first time that she sees Lo's wolf,
Mm-hmm.
and he is giant and white and fluffy, and he has green eyes.
Oh, I want to cuddle him. And he just wants pets. And for Misery to go back to bed.
He's like nuzzling her back into bed.
Oh,
And she does go back to bed for 5 days.
that's
And
wild.
while she's dreaming, we get a flashback that shows Misery and Serena's last day at the Collateral residence. They had gotten into an argument over Misery's apathy. And Serena told her, "You have to care about one fucking thing that is not me."
Yeah, which is, I mean, valid point.
Mm-hmm.
Misery still cares about Serena, but Lo and Anna have now been added to the list.
When she wakes up, like finally wakes up, she learns that the Vampire Council wasn't happy about the situation, but once it was pointed out that the poison is toxic to Weres too, so not necessarily, that Misery was the intended target, and since it was ingested through food, Misery probably wasn't the target.
Which they assume means that Anna probably was because she likes her PB&Js.
Well, and now they know that Misery's dad now knows that she is sneaking peanut butter.
I mean, that and anybody else that heard about it, how embarrassing.
How embarrassing. Lo's plan is to move Misery to the vampires or the humans or Cohen, just anywhere to be safe.
I mean, it's the pushing someone away to protect them trope.
Yes, and there's also the treaty, but Lo, he doesn't care. I mean, his priorities are the safety of Anna and Misery. And he's guilt spiraling over the poisoning and everything else happening. It's like he's starting to feel out of control.
Yeah, which is, I mean, also a trope we've seen. I would love for you to protect me, but you can't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Misery's like, we're going to have to shut that shit down. We're a team. Stop it.
And this team needs to hit the showers.
If you insist.
Well, it had been 5 days.
I mean, yeah. Hope we brush our teeth. But things get steamy.
She's like, how do Weres have sex?
Not that she's thinking about it.
Lo is still in his "I'm protecting you from me"
Hold on.
era.
To be fair, what do you mean how to wear? Like the fact that she even asked that?
Well, they don't know anything. For all we know,
Do we assume he doesn't have a dick?
3 dicks. I don't know.
I was like, okay, girl.
It's just crazy to think. Like, they have technology, so there's no way there's not like a search option. Like, you know how we all looked at weird shit on E-Bombs World or whatever,
or even like a porn channel or something.
Yeah,
it had to be.
Whatever. Oh, there has to be interspecies porn.
I know you looked, girl. Come on.
But Lo is still in his like "I'm protecting you from me" era. But she does ask for his help, and he obliges. And it reminded me of True Blood in that scene with Jason and the pastor's wife in the bathtub. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
And she's like, let me take care of
exactly. You. That's it. Because she also like has a loofah, but then she's like, and the loofah like floats away.
Uh-oh. I can still use my hand.
That's exactly what happened.
Now that they've checked finger banging off of our wish list, it's time for their first kiss.
And that worries Misery because of her fangs, but they get the hang of it pretty quickly, and then it turns feral.
Apparently, needing to eat a female out after they come is a Were thing.
That seems very fan fiction, like fan service, but whatever.
Well,
I'm here for it.
I was gonna say the fact that he's like part animal, that seems like an animal thing.
Does it? Because I don't think animals actually care about satisfaction.
No, but they're like spreading scent.
Yeah.
And it's something
spreading scent. Okay.
Oh, I mean, like it's something that's related to that he did for her. So like he has to like completely be a part of it, I guess.
You're so smart.
I'm just dirty. So dirty.
Misery almost has his jeans unbuttoned when his phone keeps ringing.
Who's doing this to us? It's Ethan. Please have sex a little louder.
A little bit loud.
I couldn't hear you that time. I LOL'd for that.
It's her brother. But he's genuinely concerned for her, which is not very vampire of him.
Right.
Because he heard about the poisoning. I guess it took 5 days.
Well, she mentioned how many times they hadn't been in contact since they were young. So like, he's playing the part of the councilman's son, so we don't know what to think of Owen. Mm-hmm. I mean, she goes back and forth. I went back and forth on trusting him too.
I knew someone was going to be a traitor. I didn't want it to be him. I knew that they were building up towards something. But yeah, Owen turns out to be a pretty great
Well,
character.
Misery's had the short end of the stick a lot, so I didn't want that for her, and I'm glad it didn't go that way.
Mhm.
Owen actually wants Misery to come home.
We just learned Weres need to go down on their females after they come, so can you fuck off, Owen?
Respectfully, fuck
Also,
off.
the nest has never been Misery's home, so when he says come home, she's like, I don't the only home I have right now is with Lo.
But also, it's bigger than that because I'm kind of a peace treaty right now. I can't come home or that throws everything out of whack for
We're taking a bath.
Yeah, I have to go. Owen starts talking in the tongue, but Misery stops him. She trusts Lo to hear whatever it is he's going to say.
Lo was talking in the tongue.
Yeah, Lo was very busy.
Serena's apartment was broken into 3 days ago. They're not sure by whom because they fucked with the cameras. There's something else that Owen wants to tell her, but it needs to be said in person.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
Alex informs Misery that he found a connection between someone at the Humanware Bureau and Serena.
And he hugs her.
Big progress. He was worried about her.
He's very like, okay,
but
we're
now,
doing this.
Yeah, but also stay away.
Don't bite me.
We're good here. A human named Thomas Jellicus was the comptroller of public accounts, and Serena had been emailing with his office for an article that she was writing. They met, though the article was never published.
He was also only at the Bureau for 11 months, 8 years ago.
Making him a candidate in the search for Anna's human father.
And it would explain why Serena was looking into Anna after talking to him.
But he's dead. He died in a, quote, car accident 2 weeks after Serena disappeared, which is too sus.
It's a literal dead end. But they can talk to Governor Davenport, who was the one who appointed him to his job.
We'll ask him at dinner tomorrow, but first, you need to feed.
Misery goes for the blood bag, but Lo stops her. Use me.
We have got to keep this going more. She tries explaining what Owen told her about bonds and tangling, but he doesn't give a shit.
Why would he not give a shit about a bond?
Well, it's weird because he's trying to protect her from himself, but he's also now willing to like entangle her further.
Well, I think he just wants to be able to take care of her, and the biggest thing he can do to take care of her is
that's
letting
another
her
trope
feed.
too, like taking care of your person.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you want with me, he says.
And he is not just talking about the blood.
Wow, we really turned a corner. He carries her to his bedroom, and we're so close until Lo tells her they can't have sex.
He says they're not compatible, and that's when I was like, uh-oh, like, what does it look like down there?
I know, I had a real moment of like, wah,
but it
sucks.
really just means that he's afraid that he's going to hurt her.
Okay. Even though he's been with humans before.
And Misery doesn't have fangs down there. She's pretty similar to human women, so...
What's up?
Yeah.
But it's not because she's a vampire, it's because she's her.
She's also a virgin, and honestly, an alpha were with a bulbous dick for your first time is a little intimidating.
Everything about that sounds really rough. Sorry, no puffing necessary.
I picture like puffer fish. I guess it's kind of right.
When you said bulbous, it's puffed up. Sorry, we went places.
Now I'm picturing it as like its own entity that like
sorry, ruining any sexy thoughts now.
They compromise on some humping and a handy.
I mean,
so like everybody wins.
It was a very sexy scene. Mm-hmm. Misery wishes that she was Lo's mate.
Because the miscommunication is still miscommunicating.
a little too hard.
And I was getting very fucking annoyed by it. When every time, because she has that thought at least once a chapter of like, I wish I was his mate. Or I guess when he's with his mate and you're like, girl, fuck.
Even if she's not like able to tell him with words how much she cares and is interested, it's been really apparent the way she's helping take care of your family and your pack. So I don't know why he's also like trying to keep her at arm's length. Like she wants this too.
Yeah.
They go to dinner at Governor Davenport's and the weirdo tries to bait them.
He is very weird. He's like, y'all must fight all the time. Like he's just like excited to hear about it. And he even brings up the Aster. Which,
I mean, he's the one that also dropped the mate thing in the beginning. He's
right.
just like here for the drama.
He loves the drama.
Jeez.
But with the Aster, it's like, why would you bring up? It doesn't matter because, Lo and Misery are Lo and Misery, but any other Vampyre and Were, why would you want to bring up that history?
Also, the Aster is actually like people being slaughtered and it's gory. Even if we do fight, we're here in one piece. So like that feels like definitely a step too far. Lo doesn't even know what the Aster is. The wearer taught that the sixth wedding was an act of revenge for the vampire's treatment of his wearer bride during the previous marriage.
Something they just casually leave out when they talk about it at the nest.
So those people are all scared shitless. Lowe moves the convo to his mother and her work with the Human Wear Bureau, specifically with Thomas Jalakis.
I heard he got around, and that is the wrong thing to say.
And Lowe can smell that he's lying.
Up against the wall, literally, the governor admits he didn't want to have Thomas killed.
Whoa.
But he was talking to journalists about the governor embezzling. His administration was involved in embezzling, so he had to.
I mean, that was so much to just like.
I know, he's up against the wall one time and he's like, I didn't want to kill him.
But then also embezzling. Like, that is so much to like tell. It doesn't line up with why they assume that Serena had been talking to Thomas either. If she was interviewing him for a financial crime story, where does Anna come in?
It's too much of a coincidence. And Lowe is like, maybe Serena found out about Anna and was blackmailing Thomas.
I mean, that says a lot about Serena's character if that's true. So that goes over as well as Bryce finding out something bad about Danica.
Exactly. I don't even know Serena, and I do already trust her more than Danica. Misery insists that Serena would not have put the life of a child at risk, not in exchange for money or a huge career-defining story. Like, that's just not Serena.
That's not who she is.
And Lowe is like, okay. Like, he doesn't fight her on it, or, like, he trusts her.
Yeah, which, thank you. They drive to the vampire-human border to meet Owen, who has brought along Lowe's, quote, mate, Gabby.
Unlike Misery and Lowe, Owen hasn't. He's like, I haven't developed feelings or attraction, which does make me think maybe he has,
Yeah, the need to say that is interesting. More importantly, Lowe doesn't seem to be affected by the presence of his, quote, mate.
Weird. He's like, sup. Like, it's literally like, hey, how's it going?
Shouldn't you be over there sniffing her or something?
Yeah, it's so odd. Like, at this point, she's learned so much about Ware and their mates, and especially about who Lowe is. It
seems like a very low-key interaction.
Right.
All things expected.
Owen reveals that the cameras around Serena's complex were tampered with on the day that she went missing using jammers.
Oh, so it was someone that knew what they were doing.
And by the way, I'm going to take over father's seat on the council. Like, he just throws it in.
Oh, okay. Unfortunately, their father wasn't dead.
I know, because she's like, did he die?
Yeah, what's happening that's led you here? But Owen has disagreed with a lot of his decisions lately. Okay, good luck forcing him out.
Well, of those decisions, one of the ones he disagreed with the most was sending Misery into enemy territory again. So he couldn't do anything about me. He couldn't do anything as a child that she was sent to live with the humans, but he's so bothered by her being sent to live with the Were that he's like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to change things.
But I appreciate that. I mean, maybe it took him being personally affected by it, but he recognizes how wrong the collateral system is.
Right.
He wants it gone. He wants to stop enforcing the artificial border lines or holding territory just out of spite.
And Owen actually does sound like he would be a good leader. He'd definitely be a better leader than their father, and Lowe agrees. So now you have, which may seem as like, oh yeah, Misery's boyfriend agrees, and it's like, no, the alpha of the Were pack agrees that you would be a good leader.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big political understanding too, so it's good.
That Were alpha also has connections with the new governor, so it's like Owen has really set himself up.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is something we need moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you seem happy with your Gabby. Gabby says and points at Misery.
He's like, you seem happy with your
yeah. Gabby's like, okay. Afterwards they stop, which if that was his mate, I don't think that it'd be that. Even if she didn't quite feel it, I feel like she'd be a little angrier, but okay.
Yeah.
Afterwards they stop by Misery's sad little human apartment.
That's actually a good point, because if they got there and obviously his scent is all over her and Gabby is his mate, I think she'd be a little more upset than just like, sup.
Well, because like even if like he was saying that one person can feel the mate bond and another can't, I feel like there would still be something pulling you together to an extent. And Gabby seems real chill about the whole situation.
And then once they get to Misery's sad little human apartment that like I don't even think has a bed or anything, it's just like it's just empty. Lowe's like, wait, did you think Gabby was my mate? Because he's just now caught on to that.
Like, this guy.
Well, and when he asked that, and then when we find out what they've been telling people, you're like, why are you confused that I thought that?
Yeah. I mean, for good reason. They lied to the humans and the vampire because collateral are supposed to be related to the leaders, so they had to somebody put it out there that Gabby was his mate to make
Mhm.
it seem like he was letting somebody important go
Yeah, it's like
instead of
he's not
Anna.
gonna let Anna go. And Gabby, I think Gabby volunteered, so he was like, "Well, we have to tell people that she's something to me, and what is more important than a mate?"
Yeah, because everybody knows it's not my sister.
So then it's less you're less it's less confusing to me why Misery thought that, because he's like, "Why would you think that?" And it's like, "Because you told people that?"
Hello.
Being in Misery's apartment with her scent everywhere, it finally pushes Lo over the edge.
And we finally learn what the big difference in species that he's been so worried about is.
And it is Knotty.
Naughty. But based on actual wolf biology. So, like during mating, a physical, quote, tie occurs caused by swelling and constriction in real life.
Raise your hand if you, or put a finger down if you thought that they were somehow tying their dicks into a knot. I was like, without,
Anybody else hear crickets?
if he,
Okay.
if he's not using his hands, how's he tying his dick off?
I mean, I guess it just helps that I've read other series where they have knotting because
I haven't, and like I've read a lot of shit with shifters, and I don't remember knotting. I know that there's like the Omega verse, and there's other shifter books that talk about it. I don't think I had read anything else with knotting.
I mean, it was in that dragon shifter book that I recommended a while ago with the dragon dick, but
Gilded?
yeah, gilded
Okay.
wings. But like, there's
No, I don't think I've read that. I read the most recent one, the Dragon
but there's
Royals.
other. I'll have to like really like look back over my books because I read another series too.
Well, knotting is hot in this book mostly because it's low. But in practice, I think it would be terrifying and I think it would be awkward. Like you're going to knot yourself inside me and we're going to what? Like stare at each other?
Well,
They said 30 minutes to an hour or longer. You can't pump.
but is he
So
like
he's just like
coming the whole time? But also like if you're mates, then like it's at least it's not like every time. It's only
like
with that
she
person.
falls asleep when it finally happens. Like that's how long it is. But then you're just you're just like looking up at him and like, he's looking down at you.
Somebody better pull out a
When you're just
toy or like
waiting.
keep this going for
You're
me.
just waiting for the swelling to go down. I don't know. I think it would be awkward.
You know, but I love that you take that perspective because they're like, what other dirty things can we do while this is happening? Kate's like,
I'm picturing like it actually happening IRL.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you know it's coming, you can like prepare and do other stuff too. But if you don't know it's coming, can you give me a heads up? That's going to be really weird for a while. It would especially be awkward if he like nodded while they were standing in her apartment instead of pulling out.
Yeah, because he's like
They were
taking her
standing.
against a wall. So
Also,
you're standing there with your pants around your ankles, and I cannot confidently say that I can go 30 minutes to an hour without one, looking at my phone, but two, farting. I can't. I don't know what my body is going to do for the next hour.
I don't need it to be that close
And
for
I'm
that long.
shuffling around. Like if I need to go somewhere, you have to go with me.
But
So we're just
also-
both just shuffling around with our pants around our ankles.
Did she just lose her virginity? Because like she's gonna be real sore. I need you to back off.
She did, but he did not inside of her. He pulled out.
Right. But I mean, like, so if he had though, like,
But
that would
looking
be
back
too
and
much.
seeing that, I would be like, oh, like that would be terrifying.
Too much.
Seeing
Too
a
much.
knot like out in the wild.
I mean, this leads to a good question. Misery asks if we're always not.
Well, and this is when Misery finally starts to put it together. Knotting happens between mates.
I mean, there's no way he can say that without like literally just telling her who she is.
Well, and this scene made me so fucking mad.
Same.
When he was doing the classic like old yeller, get away from me.
Well, it turns into like a weird gaslighting thing.
Mhm.
Lo turns full villain to push Misery away when I don't know why he thinks he has to. That's what makes it so
really
weird.
Annoying.
You've been abandoned and mistreated your entire life. You're fascinated with the idea of eternal love, but that doesn't reflect what I feel for you. If she's fascinated, maybe she's interested, you fool.
Well, and what a speech to get right after losing your virginity. You've just learned about nodding. I'm overwhelmed. I'm vulnerable. And it reminds me of Edward leaving Bella in the woods.
But also like all the intimacy they've been building, not just like sexually, but like with depending on each other. It feels very out of character and very aggressive. And I'm
I don't think that Edward left Bella in the woods. I think that actually she was in her backyard and then she ran to try to find him and got
Yes.
lost in the woods. And then it's actually her fault.
yeah, it was really kind of, I understand it, but watching it in the movie versus reading it, it was so much lamer in the
Yeah.
movie. I was like, stop
When
it.
it was an ick when she's like curled up. I was like, "Ugh, get
Look,
up."
I know people process breakups differently, and it's very hard. Some of them can be brutal.
I
but
wasn't even that dramatic in high school.
I know the way it's written in Twilight, they kind of just like write Belle off. But anyway, how many books have we read where the guy thinks he's protecting the girl and pushes her away? It's like a whole other trope.
It's Baby's first heartbreak after Lo gets a call and he just leaves Misery at her apartment.
I mean, am I just never mind standing there and like your filth, blood, like all the things, and you just left me there after
is
being
he
brutal?
still is his knot still not knotting? And then he just has to push it down.
You know what? Not my
genius.
problem, sir. You've done this to yourself.
Yeah, if it's not in someone,
I mean, I think it's still
because
happening.
that is to keep it. It's like tying them together. So like if he's not in anyone,
maybe it relaxes faster.
Yeah.
I have to go back to that jack off scene. I think that went through.
Okay.
But so Lo leaves her and Mick shows up saying that Lo asked him to come get her and she's too distracted to ask questions.
And
like,
Mick
obviously
fucking injects her with something. And I just watched a TikTok about this girl who was walking around and she was at a club and she got injected with something and then
Holy
passed
crap.
out. But then by the time she got to the hospital, they didn't know what it was, but they saw this big puncture wound. Anyway, so it's like this new thing to be terrified of someone can just walk around and inject you with something.
There are very few drugs that are out of your system that quickly.
I think it was the next day before her friend took her to the hospital.
That's so weird. All those things, that's wild. Okay,
I feel like it was Australia.
I can't go down that rabbit hole because that's a new fear I didn't know was unlocked.
I still have the fear of sitting on a needle at movie theaters. Remember that in the 90s? That was like a really big, yes. What? You don't remember that. You don't check you just sit on seats without checking them.
Yes.
Jesus.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I am not only worried about being shot in a movie theater.
That one I can.
So everyone who walks in, I'm like, is this it?
Yeah.
And I'm also checking my seat.
Okay. Note to self.
I love going to the movies, but it's terrifying.
I mean, I check them for like popcorn, but that's a whole new thing. Well, good news. Misery has found her BFF. Bad news. They're locked in a guarded room. Serena hasn't been tortured or anything, at least.
Unless you count being locked into a room and the only books are classic like Dickens, torture. And I do think that would classify that as torture.
I can't read that English. Misery fills Serena in on the marriage and Lo and everything that she's missed. And Serena confirms Misery's theory that she was looking at Thomas Jalakis. Jalakis, I don't know.
I put every time that we had to say it for you because I was like, I don't know how to say it.
I'm taking a wild guess out there. I apologize. I'm sure I butchered it.
It reminds me of Andy Milonakis.
I mean, that's what it looks like. Jalakis.
You know, he was like 30 years old.
Yes, that's wild. But yes, Serena confirms that she was looking to Thomas, found out about Anna, and then got kidnapped because of that.
They assume that it's Emery behind everything.
Misery and Serena managed to escape thanks to a guard who's like really bad at his job.
Kind of an idiot.
And while the room was in an attic, it's in a building much taller than expected.
And it's a building that Misery recognizes. They are at the Nest.
Womp womp. We got some much bigger questions now. What are Weres doing at the Nest? Why are they working with the vampires? Before they can escape, Vania, her dad's like top guard, pops up and tells Misery that she needs to come with her one last time. And you know, I don't think so.
And it's the same bitch that at the beginning of the book told Misery that she has to go talk to her father. I feel like they're fucking.
I just got out of captivity. And I'm surprised that I'm here. Why am I following you anywhere?
You know who it reminded me of? In Serpent and the Wings of Night, her father has like a right-hand person that's a woman and they're like overly close.
It's also actually in the reverse harem that I discussed.
Is it?
Yeah, the king.
Oh,
king
yeah.
dragon,
Yeah.
head of his guard,
Okay.
or the head of his like assassins group or whatever.
Is she pregnant?
Yeah.
Is she actually? Spoiler.
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't tell if she was making it up.
No, she really is. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, the fact that it's Vania is shocking, but it's not shocking that Misery's father is involved in this.
It really do be your own people sometimes.
I mean, but the way they've treated her, none of it would surprise her.
Well, what's sad is she's more shocked by Mick's involvement than her own father's involvement. Like she feels more betrayed by Mick than her father.
Well, Mick actually showed her kindness when her father hasn't.
Well, and she's also shocked by the lack of Emery's involvement because this entire book, she's been the villain.
Yeah. I mean, well, the loyalists were just an easy scapegoat.
But also, like we talked about earlier, maybe setting up conflict for book 2 because they have actually been up to some
Yeah, they're
shit.
still doing some stuff.
Mick tells Misery that her father has his son.
How long has he had Mick's
I guess
son?
this entire time?
Because I forgot when that raid was, but it's been a couple
It was
years, hasn't it?
before Lo took over.
Yeah, I thought it had been at least a year.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mick's dumbass son was taken during a raid, and he's been under the thrall ever since.
We actually met him earlier, Mick's son. It was Serena's wereguard, the one that fell for there's something in my eye or whatever.
Oh, God bless him. It's because he's under the thrall. He can't think straight.
Her father, I know I have questions about the thrall, about how it works,
if you're really good at it, yeah.
How long, how separated they can be, whatever. Her father goes into his villain speech, and Serena fills in the blanks. Vampires have been behind the border skirmishes between the humans and the Weres. He is fully a villain.
Yeah.
Not just towards this relationship or in this situation,
messing
far-reaching.
The political aspects of everybody. Speaking of Serena, it wasn't sparing Misery's feelings that kept her alive.
Misery's father learned of a half-were, half-human child years ago and stashed her away in the human territory.
Interesting. What were you going to do with that? And I didn't see this coming.
Serena is that half-were, half-human child hidden in the human territory alongside Misery.
But also,
he's long game.
Yeah. Okay. And she seemed really human and normal, except for the days that she'd disappear without warning.
Well, and they were watching her, and they never put it together that she was disappearing on full moons.
Yeah.
So, in some ways, they were playing the long game, but then in some ways, were you?
I guess if they thought that it couldn't happen, people just didn't even consider it.
Well, and then she started researching her parents. So, like me, she got on 23andMe, which, by the way, I got on 23andMe thinking that I was going to find a whole other family, that I was going to be like Anastasia or something. No one. I didn't have any close relatives. Is that the saddest thing you've ever heard?
Which is kind of impressive for Alabama.
And what's that mean?
I figured there'd be cousins everywhere.
I thought I was going to find a new family, and
well, we have found family instead. For
exactly. I am the found family trope.
Yes, but in a good way.
So she starts researching her parents. She's asking questions. She's getting these genetic tests, and they're all coming back inconclusive. And that's when they're that's when alarm bells are raised.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Thomas Jalakis,
Milanakis,
that one was trying to find information about his hybrid daughter, and that's why he was on Serena's radar. So he knew about Anna.
Yes, and it wasn't the governor who killed Thomas, or it was, but he was thralled. That also was Misery's father.
Yeah, well, that governor seemed like a total dupe.
Governor
seemed like a dupe, so it checks out. But then why did Misery's father try to kill Anna?
Oh, awkward. It wasn't actually Anna he was trying to kill.
What? That's when Owen and a handcuffed Lo joined the party.
Misery starts questioning everything that Owen has told her about overthrowing their father, helping Serena, not agreeing with collateral systems.
I mean, how did he not know Serena's there, I
don't know.
But so that, I would be questioning it too.
Yeah.
I'm oh, you didn't know? I'm sure you knew. And then he walks in with Lo in handcuffs. So it really makes her question everything.
Mm-hmm.
Misery's father knows that she's Lo's mate. And when Misery begs Lo to tell him the truth, or what she thinks is the truth, he can't.
Councilman Lark wants Anna as leverage, as assurance that the humans and Weres won't join forces against the vampire. And he's using Misery, Lo's mate, to get her. So he wants Misery to beg Lo to give him Anna.
He holds a knife to his own daughter's throat, assuming that she'll ask Lo to choose her over his sister. But bro, look how you treated me.
He doesn't know his daughter. I think that's really important, is how un-vampire Misery is, because she would never do that. During their standoff, Serena starts talking Simlish, basically, and tells Misery, your father's wrong about not being able to shift.
Simlish is their little language they created together.
Everyone knows that.
Okay, I'm just helping.
We all know what our Sims talk. I love that.
Misery gets the message to Lo by telling him that thing Anna isn't able to do. She'll grow into it, and she'll definitely be able to do it by the time she's 25 or so, which seems really obvious what she's saying, but okay.
It does, but also I'd be like, oh.
Okay.
That's good.
Good news.
Owen steps forward. Lowe's cuffs are undone. He and Serena both shift, and they do not hold back.
Love this. What's most unsettling to Misery is that their clothes don't shift with them.
She like anticipated them wearing tiny like neckties, like that they. She's like, it was very unsettling watching your clothes rip off and like tattered clothes hang from you as you rip everybody apart. It wasn't the ripping apart part. It was your tits hanging out while you do it.
I know, but like this is like what I would get hung up on too. Like, where did your clothes go?
Well, do you think their wolves are like down?
Doesn't Aelin ask Rowan that at one point?
Yes.
So like I get it. I'm like, wait, hold on.
Well, in every book and every movie and everything, it's all different. Like we've talked about in Crescent City, when they're in wolf form and they're talking,
that's just extra wild.
If their mouths open and then just audio comes out, but their mouths aren't.
Yeah, because they shouldn't be able to form some of these words. But it's the same thing weird. In speaking of Twilight. Like Jacob takes his clothes off and gets naked first, so we know what happens to his clothes.
And he's always ripping them off. Like, where are you buying clothes if they're that cheap?
But like, really?
In the aftermath, Owen explains how he and Lowe started planning their scheme. They were finally able to get footage of the break-in from Serena's apartment, and it showed Mick. And that is when Lowe freaked the fuck out, knowing that Misery was with Mick. And so he contacted Owen, and they came up with this plan.
They didn't kill Councilman Lark yet, who tells everyone he'd do it all over again.
Cool. Like, that's great. Like, can you imagine? Not only did your father tried to have you kill not once but twice, but he's like, and I'd do it again. And they're like, cool.
What a great guy.
Owen's like, well, just to let you know, I'm going to be taking your place on the council, and I'm going to undo everything that you spent decades doing. I'm going to undo your entire legacy.
I mean, like, thank you. I don't know if she plans on writing future books, but again, I'd read an Owen romance or Cohen. I like them both.
Yeah. Why choose?
Definitely a thought.
And Serena and Cohen, there's definitely something going on when they meet. There's like little hints.
Yeah, Cohen is not very subtle. Serena explains that she didn't tell Misery about her Weres side because she knew how much Misery hated Weres.
Misery doesn't hate Weres. She tells her, she's like, I might even be in love with one.
I don't think Misery really even hated them. I don't think she really cared that much.
She just kind of made fun of them. Like, she made fun of them in that, like, they wet dog smell kind of stuff, but not like a deep animosity or hatred.
Yeah. Misery is shocked when she learns that Lo has gone home without her.
She's not needed as collateral anymore, so there's no real reason to go back there. But she steals Owen's car and drives Serena to Juneau, and just because she's in the neighborhood, she's like, I'll stop by Lowe's.
Where her things are inside boxes. I would have been crushed immediately.
Well, that's how I came back from Italy. I didn't even have floors.
That's a whole other side story.
Lowe tells Misery that although they were wrong about Emery's involvement when it came to Anna, that bitch really was leading a loyalist movement.
Yeah, he also doesn't know what to do with Mick and his son.
I know, and that's what I think makes Lowe such a good leader, is he understands, like, yeah, this guy double-crossed me, but they had his son.
Yeah. Well, he's like thinking things through and like really listening and like weighing out how bad it's not just like black and white. Like, no, you're a traitor, so sorry, too bad.
And Lowe goes into his whole go on without me, I'm bad for you, blah blah blah, but she is not letting him kick her out this time because squatters have rights.
But she's not being evicted. Her things are in boxes because he's changing the windows to vampire friendly windows.
They finally admit that they're mates, and she drinks from him and he knots in her,
and they live happily ever after.
I know, happily ever after, we assume.
I appreciate the sex that happens right there at the end. But I'm like, I could have used even more of this.
I know.
Why just at the end?
But overall, I really enjoyed this book. That's the end of the story, but I thought it was a fun, short read. It made me laugh. I connected with not only the main characters, but the side characters. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. I would have liked a little, like, there was already plenty of spice, but a few more of those hot, like, tense scenes. I would have enjoyed reading some more of those for the characters.
Well, and it's Allie's first little dipping her toe into fantasy romance. So hopefully we get more from her, and maybe it'll get spicier. And
I'd read it.
Is it, especially the cover, a little Wattpad-ish? Sure. But yeah, I enjoyed reading it. And like, I don't know if I'm going to go read more of her other books that are just straight up romance, but I really liked it. And I Thank you guys for listening and trusting us with your TBR with the Spicy Girls Book Club.
Yes. And next week, we're going to talk A Fate Inked in Blood, and our Throne of Glass deep dive begins July 9th with chapters 1 through 10.
I'm so excited about that. And like we said at the beginning, if you're into House of the Dragon, check out our mini episodes for breakdowns. We're not going to do full recaps, but talking about the show compared to the book, whatever. And yeah, then we're going to do A Fate Inked in Blood, and then we have Throne of Glass. There's just a lot of things happening. Very
so
exciting.
many exciting things this summer. Thanks for sticking with us, guys.
Thanks, y'all.